This podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. Our friends over at SeatGeek are giving us a promo code of TBA Wrestling. That is TBA Wrestling for $20 off your first purchase. Enjoy the show. Welcome to Gunners Ross Podcast, where we are positively Arsenal, and that we are. And today is a solo episode. We got a lot going on this week, so I'm just trying to pop it in. And I thought a day early would actually be beneficial because we're going to be previewing the PSG Arsenal game, and that is the main talking point this week. So I thought if we do it tomorrow, and you'll have 6 hours before team news. There's no time to listen to the podcast. So I thought if we do it today, get you kind of ready for the gigantic game, the season-defining game in the league, which is tomorrow night against PSG at the Parc des Princes in Paris. So, yeah, so Joe's at work currently. Simon is just recovering from Super Strong Style. Shout out to Progress. He won the Battle Royal. And so it'll just be me here. I've got Luke here. And I've got iced coffee, as you can tell. So we'll talk about that Bournemouth game as well. We'll kind of get that out of the way early, I think, because something we do need to talk about is the league. So the first half, we'll kind of mention stuff about the league. Maybe the other way around, we'll do Prediction League as well in the first half. And then we'll do a big old preview of the PSG game. So this weekend, we were facing Bournemouth at the Emirates. It was on TV. It was a 5:30 game, I think. And I think team news was the first thing that people kind of had question marks over, which was, did we potentially go too strong? I must admit, I saw that team news and I was glad. Maybe just because I was watching it and in like a selfish way, I wanted to see our best team. Obviously, hindsight's 2020 is, I really wish we hadn't because it made me more uncomfortable and nervous about the Paris game. But when the team news has come out, I thought, I'm happy with that. I'm glad Ben White's going to get a run out. Didn't like the idea that potentially Timber isn't fit enough to play the PSG game. And Marino was on the bench. So I thought maybe there was a couple resting situations there. But the rest of the team was, ready to go. So Bournemouth, I thought it would be a good way if we're going to play full strength is see it as the PSG game. See it as a game where we need to create as many chances. We need to be slick defensively, but keep putting on the pressure, build the pressure, let it kind of sit. And with our home field advantage and, the crowd and stuff like that, you'd think, well, this should be more possible. So as long as we can do it against Bournemouth at home, we have half a chance against PSG where the atmosphere is going to be the complete opposite. So it'd be nice to get into some rhythm. And I know the first half was miles better than the second half, and I think we created maybe 2 or 3 chances before we got the goal. Before half-time. I was more frustrated with this game than I have been with many others, and I don't know if circumstantially because of the Champions League games that last week against PSG, the league form, where we've drawn 3 in a row, I believe. I don't know what it was, but I felt so much frustration with mainly, I don't know what the word would be, the lack of urgency, the tiredness. All these things in the first 5 minutes, I thought, this is not good. And it was because there's like a knock-on effect, isn't there, of they look tired now, and now you're making them play a game before the biggest game. There was no momentum. There was no defensive solidarity. There was no offensive cohesion between the players. People looked kind of uninterested. And again, there's 2 ways of looking at it. Is it because the league's done? Even though I'm going to get to, I don't think it is done. Winning it is obviously, but the really important part isn't done. But, some of the passes from there was that one that Raya passed out to Odegaard, and Odegaard kind of missed it. And I actually think that was less of a Raya bad pass and more of, I don't know what Odegaard was doing. Almost like his depth perception was off. And I know people online have kind of said Raya kind of causes some nervy moments, but I don't think that was him at all. He played it to his left foot, and it was maybe a yard ahead of him, and he kind of did a weird kind of movement, Odegaard, and he just couldn't seem to get under control. So that was alarm bells, because it was almost like they're just not concentrating. Rice was our best attacking threat, which has been a consistent this year, which is a real worry. But maybe conducive of the fact that we don't have many attackers, and we haven't had many attackers this season. But we do have very good wingers, and we're getting the ball more to Rice than we are them. Maybe again that is because people are blocking off the channels to Saka and to Martinelli, so therefore Rice can kind of drift in, which is good that he's learnt that this year. Because when you kind of work here, at the end of the season, we'll kind of go through in more perspective of whether we win the Champions League, whether we got here, whether we get Champions League football, which is still a shout, or whatever, that we can kind of look back at it and take a breath and go, who's had a good season, who has a bad season? But when you look at our midfield, I think Rice, this is his best season. I think Partey might be his best season he's had with us. Odegaard's probably his worst season he's had with us. Saka, his most injured season. Martinelli, probably the most frustrating season. We haven't really had centre forwards for a long periods of time. Moreno has actually been much better than we anticipated, but in not the position we anticipated. Defensively, Saliba, I think, has been his shakier season. It has been the last couple. Gabriel was unbelievable up until the injury. Ben White might be, coming back from injury, but there are signs that he is not the defender and the player that Timber is. Lewis Skelly's been unbelievable. We didn't expect this. Calafiori been more injured than expected. I think Ray has been kind of mid-level. But the fact that two of our midfield have had their best seasons with us says a lot that we still haven't been able to, capitalise on certain things. But probably also the reason why we are doing fine. I say doing fine because there is a lot of conversation about Arsenal after this game, and I'll kind of quickly get to the rest of that game, and then I'll kind of circle back to the point of how well we're doing in the league. But we go on and score. Rice scores a really nice goal. He gets in 2 or 3 times. Even sat watching with my dad. He was like, I'm going to put a bet responsibly on Declan Rice to score because he's getting in far too easy. And I had him one shot on target. But he gets in, takes it around the keeper. Really nice from Odegaard. I think it's all set up by Partey because there's one too many players in our team that want to go sideways, backwards, take the easy out. Partey, 9 times out of 10, will always take the route, try and go forward. Because if you're not going to make vertical passes, you're not going to go anywhere. You're going to go side to side the whole game. He takes that vertical pass. It gives Odegaard a little bit more time than he usually got when he's collecting the ball deep. He instantly makes the pass from Rice, who's running forward. Really nice goal. And at that point, I thought, as frustrating as a half that's been, it hasn't been very good as a build-up to PSG. Maybe they are just calculated. Maybe they were taking their time, and this is what they're doing against PSG is, wait, sit back, take their time, and then when they're ready, strike in a very, calculating way and very kind of potent because they got forward, they scored, they got the goal. And we went into half-time, and I thought, I don't think we're looking great, but I'm glad we're winning because we need to stop the rot in the league as far as we've dropped 6 out of 9 points in the last 3 games. So I thought, 3 points here could really kind of almost guarantee us the Champions League football and not guarantee us second, but probably guarantee us top 3. But then the second half comes out. Instantly, you kind of get that feeling that maybe Bournemouth are going to grow into this. Once they make the substitutions, that was the game changer. They got Semenyo on and they brought Scott on, I think. And what's worrying is, one, we didn't make changes. I think Moreno came on. But realistically, our big changes happened on post 85 minutes. With the massive game coming up in 3 days after this game, to be not making changes that late is terrifying. But when you look at what they brought on, and it did change the game, their substitutions literally changed the game to them going from 1-0 down to 2-1 up. But I think anyone could see from watching that their substitutions are good enough to change games. Ours were not. And what I mean by that is our substitutions in that game were Moreno to come on to go up front instead of Trossard. And when, take away the form that Moreno's been in, Trossard is a very good centre-forward. Trossard's a very good centre forward. Moreno is a midfielder, but that was our attacking change to bring on a defensive midfielder for an attacker to potentially change the game. It obviously doesn't. Later on in the game, we also bring on Zinchenko as a left back. We also bring on Sterling for Saka, essentially, and Nwaneri on for, and I don't remember exactly who that was for. It might have been Rice. So the mixture of those substitutions, it's not. None of that kind of makes you go, oh, that's going to change a game. You know, if we were 1-0 down or something along those lines. But their changes, Scott in the midfield and then Semenyo, that's changes that I would like to see us make. You know, if you completely switch that and Bournemouth brought in Zinchenko, Sterling, 17, now 18-year-old Nwaneri and Moreno to go up front, we would be like, oh, okay. And if we were bringing Semenyo and Scott off the bench, I think we would be we'd all be chuffed with that. And that's a worry that Bournemouth can make better offensive changes or changes in general than we can, which is a huge negative. But there's also a positive that comes with that, is the fact that we're second in the league and going to the semi-finals of the Champions League, and we can't make substitutions as good as Bournemouth right now. So maybe we're massively overachieving, which I think we definitely are, but it's also worrying that, why is that? Because I think if you'd said in the last 2 seasons, if we had bought, you know, if last summer you bought Isaac and Eze, or this summer you buy Isaac and Eze, or the summer before that you bought Isaac and Eze, we probably win the league last year or this year. We probably win a Champions League this year or last year. And the frustration is we all knew that. I think any fan of any team knew that. And instead, our decision last year was to just bring Sterling in. So that's one point of, I think, issue with us, is there is a positive and a negative to look at that. Our subs aren't as good as Bournemouth. The positive is, look where we are in the league compared to Bournemouth, and we're clearly not got the depth that they have, which is, I know, either way you look at it, it's a real worry. But they do get back in the game. Semenyo makes a good run. Saliba makes a good tackle. I'm watching it now, but Semenyo does one of the longest throws I've ever seen. And Huijsen, I think you said, the one that is kind of came from Juventus. Everyone in the world seems to want him. Does the chill guy celebration. But the header is, you know, take away how poor all of it is and avoidable. It's a very long throw. And then the header is right in the corner. So it's unsavable, essentially. But the defending is too poor. And it goes to the second goal because we give away a very easy corner. And I think the corner is flicked on to the back post to Evan Nilsson. And it somehow gets scrambled in under Raya. And I think when you watch it again, I've got it on now. I think, I don't want to kind of harp on the argument of, is it a handball, is it not? Do I think it's a handball? Yes. In real time, did I think it was a handball? I didn't even notice. If he doesn't give it as a handball, is it a penalty? Maybe. I don't think it is. I've seen people online saying it's a penalty and a red card for Odegaard. It's not, because I'm watching it now. Everyone in the box is doing the exact same thing. Every corner we had, they're doing the same thing to us. So I don't think it is a penalty and a red card particularly, but it's not even a penalty. But I do not like this concept that we don't watch the ball. Odegaard is facing completely the wrong way and he has no clue where that ball is. If he's touch tight and he's side on, he can see that coming to the back post and just stick his leg out and clear it. So, you know, take away whether it's a handball or not, he could do so much better there. And it's obviously the way we set up, because the, I guess, set piece coach gets everyone to do that, because we've seen Timber in the last few weeks doing the exact same thing. No eyes on the ball. And, you know, you could say because we score a lot of set pieces, that's, you kind of trust it. But defensively, we are the worst in the league for conversion of set pieces against us. So obviously it doesn't work in that sense, because I was talking about it at the weekend, and in the NFL, that's a flag. You've got to have your eye on the ball when it's coming in. It just looks so wrong, and it makes it so hard for yourself to do anything about it. Whether it's a handball or not, I'm 99% sure it's a handball. Yeah, it's physics. If you're leaning backwards and the ball is bouncing at speed up towards your body, and your arm is there, and it somehow goes back down quite hard towards the ground, unless you have the pointiest ribs that are sticking out 6 or 7 inches, or the most impressive pecs that anyone has ever seen in football, there's no way the ball goes back down. It just goes past you. It goes up your body and then up in the air. And if at best it comes out at like a 45-degree angle upwards towards the goal, and Raya could probably grab it and carry on. So it is a handball, but I don't think it defends how bad the defending is. And that's what I want to say on that first goal is there's 3 or 4 guys that are not even seeing the throwing come in. No one challenges for the ball. The only person in the whole box that jumps is Huijsen, and he scores it. And yeah, he puts it in the far corner and it's impossible to save, and that is unlikely. But how are you supposed to, win a set piece if you're not even jumping? So as good as we've been with set pieces, I think we've been just as bad defending them. I think Arteta's right in the sense that he says we concede so little goals that percentage looks worse than it is, because we're conceding. I think someone said something like we conceded actually the 3rd least amount of goals from set pieces in the league, but our percentage is higher. And that's because if you concede 100 goals and 30 of them are set pieces, you concede 30%. Whereas if you concede 50 goals and 30 of them are or 25 of them are, it's 50%. So I think it's more of that kind of thing. So I don't think we're particularly susceptible than other teams. I just think when we do concede, it's either our own error or it's a set piece. Interestingly, we're not going to see any arguments that Bournemouth only win because of set pieces, even if both goals were set pieces, and we had to listen to 6 months of Arsenal can only score set pieces, and that's not a valid way of scoring a goal apparently, but apparently is now. All that nonsense. But something that there was a conversation after the game, and there's 2 conversations that I want to kind of extinguish a little bit on from our point of view as Arsenal fans and those kind of things, and arguments we should or shouldn't get into. The first one, I think it was Redknapp was saying it, was plain and simple, Arsenal have to be better. They're not good enough. They're just not good enough, essentially. And he said, everyone in the league except Liverpool has had injuries. Everyone in the league except Liverpool have had bad decisions. They have to be better. So if you're saying that other than the team that have won the league, we have to be better, how could we be better than being second place, which is the top of all the teams? That isn't the team that have had the bad decisions and the injuries. So aren't we technically we can't do better. The only way to do better is to beat the team that have had no injuries and decisions. But to win a league, you need a lot of things to get your way, hence how Liverpool have won the league. So that conversation to me is a really odd one. I've seen it across all socials and Sky Sports, is that, Arsenal just aren't good enough. Because everyone's had to deal with injuries. And I agree, everyone has dealt with injuries. Bournemouth have dealt with injuries. But they're also 8th in the league. And their substitutions are better than ours. So surely the conversation should be more that we're outperforming our squad. And a rookie manager and really particularly bad decisions and injuries. So that conversation, I think, is just so null and void, because we are literally the best of all the other teams. So how could we be better other than guaranteeing second, which isn't a guarantee, which I am going to get to in the league table in a moment. The other conversation is if Man United or Spurs win the Europa League and we go out the semis and we come second or third, or let's say it's second, who's had a better season? And I don't think I'm going to get too deep into that. We went to a Europa Cup final and there was the same conversation because we were 8th, and people were saying that we're past it. We're never going to get back into the top 4. We're 8th in the league. Doesn't matter if you win the Europa Cup, you're still not on the right trajectory. We were never 17th and 16th in the league, or 16th and 15th in the league. If we weren't good enough at 8th to rectify a season being better than, I think at the time it was like Liverpool coming second, and I totally agree, this isn't a conversation. If someone said, would you rather come second and go to a semi-final of the Champions League, or win the Europa League, become 17th? I don't think there's any Arsenal fan that would want the second thing, especially when you look at the team. Like, there's an upward trajectory for Arsenal. There is a spiralling going on at the other two. So that stuff doesn't really concern me. But the conversations around it are ridiculous, I think, to an extent. But when you do look at the league, there is a top 4 battle going on. I'm just pulling the league up now. We are second with 67 points. City, everyone's played the same amount of games now. It's pretty much we can't drop to 6th. 6th will be out of the Champions League. 5th would get you in. 6th will be in the Europa League. 7th, Conference League. There's a chance 8 and 9 will end up in the Conference League as well, depending on the winners of the FA Cup or the Europa Cup. Things like that, because we could have 6 teams going into the Champions League, including Man United and Spurs. So when you look at it, to drop out officially, we are 6 points ahead of the team that's 6th, which is Forest currently. There is 9 points up for grabs. Our goal difference compared to Forest, for example, is we are 19 goals better off. We are 12 goals better off than Chelsea, 12 better than Newcastle, and we are 9 better off than Man City. So unless we get beaten 3 or 4-0 twice, we only have to win 1 game. And that is if they all go 100%. The thing is, I think Villa and Chelsea play this week. It might be Newcastle and Chelsea. We've got to play Newcastle. Chelsea have got to play Forest last day of the season. And I think there's another one in there. So everyone's playing each other. So therefore, someone has to take some points off of someone at some point. To guarantee us going out of any European football, we have to get 2 points. To guarantee Champions League football, we need 3 points. But that's, again, if everyone goes 100%, which they can't because they're all playing each other. So I'm fairly sure, I think this weekend, Man City have a very favourable tie. Forest have a very favourable tie. We do not. But Newcastle and Chelsea play each other. So if we were to lose to Liverpool, which is very likely, and then Newcastle and Chelsea draw, but Forest win, Forest would leapfrog. No, they would all be on 64 points. From 6th to 4th. They'd all be on 64. 4 points behind us. City would be 1 point behind us with 60. Oh, they'd be level points at 67. But we'd be ahead on goal difference. And they'd be on 64. So we'd be 3 points ahead of them. Then we'd play Newcastle. If Newcastle then beat us, they would leapfrog us to 67. They would be on level points, sorry. Chelsea, if they were to win, would be on level points, but we'd be above them on goal difference. So we'd be 3rd if we lose the next 2 in a row, even whoever it's against, if Newcastle and Chelsea both draw the game before. And if Forest win the next 2 in a row, they could go level points with us as well. So that would mean it'll come down to the last day that us, Newcastle, Chelsea and Forest would all be on the exact same points, and where we're away to Saints. That is the worst case scenario because there is a genuine chance, and this is not even including Villa, who are behind us, because if we lose the next 2 and they win the next 2, they'll be 1 point behind us as well. So there's a chance on the last day of the season we could drop to 7th out of any Europa or Champions League. So it's still not wrapped up. It's very unlikely, but the way we performed against Bournemouth and we have in the league the last 3 weeks, I can't imagine us just winning against Liverpool, or we could draw against Liverpool and then draw against Newcastle, and I think that would secure European football 100% no matter what anyone else does. And I think we'd only need 1 point to guarantee Champions League on the last day. Whereas if you beat Liverpool, I think that guarantees European and Champions League, but not second. And I think it's important that we come second. I really do. I don't know if we can with the fixtures and City kind of finding a bit of form, but I think all eyes are particularly on the Champions League this week. But if we go out there, they really got to come into some form in the league and just kind of finish strong, because there is a genuine outside chance that we could come 7th and be in the Conference League. And if we were to go out of the semi-final of the Champions League and come Conference League, it's a very, very, very bad season. Because if you'd said that at the start of the season, I wouldn't have accepted that. Because there's certain scenarios, and we were kind of going through it in the group with me, Joe and Simon, what's acceptable and what wasn't. At the start of the season, we all kind of agreed we would take a domestic trophy like the Carabao, but coming top four and having a run in the Champions League. And a run in the Champions League is essentially what we've done. We're one game off of the final. I said I would be happy with second again, but a run in the Champions League where we actually get to enjoy and potentially go to a final. That's exactly what we could have. And that was totally acceptable to me at the start of the season. The only thing I think would be unacceptable at this point with where we are in the Champions League is just not coming in the Champions League. As long as we're in the top four, I don't really matters what, or top five, it doesn't really matter where we come, even if we go out against PSG. As long as we stay in the Champions League, we can knock this one off as we brought Wineri through. Lewis Skelly became an unbelievable star. And we really guaranteed after 3 years of trying to tell the Arsenal board, we need attackers. And chances are, touch wood, we won't have this many injuries next year. Chances are they won't make a rule that they change after a week, 6 weeks, that affect us to a point where we, draw and lose games in the first 10. The fixture list can't be as bad as the first 10 games they give us this year. So all these things that have worked against us this year shouldn't happen next year. And therefore, I think we're in better stead to potentially win a league or potentially win a Champions League or potentially win a domestic trophy. So I'm not as pessimistic about it. But the only way I would is if we were to drop out of European football, Champions League football. Anything other than Champions League football, I think this is a awful season. I think if we get Champions League football, I think it's kind of just a consistent season and we've overcome bad odds. And we can just kind of write it off in the history books as a year that we brought Lewis Skelly and Wineri through. So there's a positive there. And we went to a semi-final. If we were to win the Champions League, I don't think it matters where we come. I think it will be remembered as the best season potentially ever over the Invincibles because it's just not been done. So the fact that that's still there shows you how on a knife edge and how season-defining that game in Paris this week is. But before we move on to that Paris game, I'm going to just pull up the prediction league because I can tell you last week I got 8 out of 10 or 8 out of 11, I think it was. Simon got 6 and Joe got 3. So Joe's on 142. He might be out of the race now. Simon is on 164 and I'm on 165. So I'm 1 ahead now. I gained 3 on Simon. How many? There's 3 league weeks. So there's 30 games left, I believe. I don't think anyone's got game in hand. So there's a 30-point swing that could happen if Joe went the complete opposite as us. And he is currently off the lead, 23. So he can go the same on 7 games. So he might be out, but mathematically he isn't. I do have Simon and I's in here, not Joe's, but I'll get them filled in tomorrow to make sure we're up to date on everything. So the first game of the weekend is Saints versus City. Simon and myself have gone City. This is one of the favourable ones. This is a City win. I think Saints are very poor. The only team they might be at home before the end of the season, because there's only 2 more left, is us, which would be horrific. But I think City go there and do a job. I don't think they're good enough, Saints. And at this point, City will go third, stay third, but there'll be joint points with us. Our goal difference will just be better. Next one is Fulham versus Everton. Again, Simon and I both gone Fulham. Everton have done well. I think they're kind of just definitely seeing out the season now a little bit and kind of getting ready for next year in the new stadium. The only big game left is, I think, next week. The last one at Goodison. That will be a big one, and I can't imagine them losing. I don't know who they have, but I can't imagine them losing. Fulham are a really good side. They just they've had a weird end to the season, but they're finding their way around. Wolves are next against Brighton. Again, Brighton have been really disappointing this year, considering where we thought they would be, maybe. And myself and Simon both gone draw. Wolves are a really odd side. I think they're a lot better than what the league has shown. The only team that had a worse fixture list to start this whole season was us. They lost their manager because of it. They were good in all of those games except for one. I think in any other season, they get a certain goal at a certain time in a game, and maybe 4 or 5 of those draws have become wins. And I think maybe they're realistically probably about 12th in the league, but the league shows different. The next one is Ipswich versus Brentford, and Simon's gone Ipswich and I've gone draw. Brentford with a 4-3 against Man United. They're such a bizarre team to watch. Definitely not as good away from home they are at home. Ipswich are definitely showing fight and have done all season. Talk about a team that are definitely better than what they show. I think realistically, they are the third to worst team, and they would go down whatever. But and I think Man United, Tottenham will find enough wins. But I think on any other year they've drawn so many games. If they showed a bit more a bit earlier in the season, I think they could have made it a real fight who goes down. But I think ultimately they would have gone down, so they're probably where they would have been. But I just see a draw here. I think they do show that fight, and they'll find that fight against Brentford. I'm interested where Delap will be next year. The next game is Bournemouth versus Villa. I've gone draw. Simon's gone Villa. I think Bournemouth are actually a very good team. They drew with Man United, unlucky with the Evan Nilsson red card that got dismissed, and I can't believe VAR didn't figure that one out in real time that he slipped over. But they draw there. They beat Arsenal. They now got Villa. Villa didn't look great in their 1-0 win this week. Definitely running out of steam. Could be interesting Villa next year because I think Watkins will be moved on. They're obviously not as interested in him. They got rid of Duran. Is there a big, is Liam Delap destined for somewhere like Villa? And where is Watkins going to end up? The next game is Newcastle versus Chelsea. This is a big one. Simon's gone draw, which is probably the ideal result. Yeah, I'd say ideal result. I've gone Chelsea. This is a really tough one. I think if Newcastle somehow do end up getting Champions League football, I don't say somehow, they should get Champions League football, but if they get top 4, like top 3 even, and a Carabao Cup, this is an unbelievable season. And this was a season I don't think we noticed them as much because they weren't in Champions League this year. I don't think there wasn't constant conversation around them, but they've kind of sneakily kind of got on with it. Have the best forward in the league. I think Murphy's been unbelievable for them. Guimaraes and Tonali being back has been unbelievable. They're a really good team, and they do need to keep Isaac, and I think the only way to do that is to get in the Champions League and pay him a lot of money. But it'd be a big one. Chelsea beat Liverpool, and the conversation around Palmer being Ronaldo is bizarre. This guy scored his first goal this year. He had a good game. I don't know who his manager is or whatever. He's a very good player. He has to do it for like the next 3 or 4 seasons. Like Saka's only now being considered world class, and he's carried Arsenal for 5 years. The fact that they're even saying is he that level is mad. But he's a very good player, and Liverpool I think have kind of given up. They'll probably go full strength and not give up against Arsenal, but they did certainly this week. Man United at home to West Ham. I've gone Man United. Simon's gone West Ham. I think Man United are going to win a couple in the end of the season. They can't lose that many. There's just no, surely they'll find a way to win a couple of these. And West Ham do not look great under Potter. They're a bit in flux, I'd say, West Ham. I don't know what's next for West Ham. Is there a relegation battle next year? I do not know. Next one is Forest versus Leicester. Simon and myself have both gone Forest. Another one that I think is a favourable one for Forest. I think they're going to win that, which will put the pressure back onto Arsenal and all the teams around them, like Newcastle and Chelsea. The upsetting part about this weekend is we might be in such a battle by the time we play. It could put a lot of pressure on them, especially with the downer of potentially going out of the Champions League against PSG midweek. Next one is Spurs Palace, and I've gone against my usual and gone Spurs. Simon's gone Palace. I think Palace are good. Again, similar to Man United, I just don't think Tottenham will win a couple eventually. Surely they can't just keep losing. So I'm just going by probability. Other than that, I don't really care. I think Eze should be at Arsenal. I think he's unbelievable. And the last game is Liverpool-Arsenal. Kind of mentioned that they went a bit weakened this week. Not massively. They're definitely kind of checked out, which is understandable. I just hope we kind of ring some changes. So do they. And it becomes a weird match where we just can kind of pip a draw or something. I don't think we'll win there. The big fear is we lose badly to PSG and them this week. And then it's going to be very hard to kind of bring them back around because we really will have 2 cup finals on our hand after that. So let's just hope it doesn't come to that. Again, Simon and I both went Arsenal because we always do. I think my guess is really a draw, but prediction league-wise, I'm going Arsenal. That's just kind of the way we do it, though, isn't it? We all go Arsenal no matter what. So the second half of the show, we're going to talk about Champions League. This is the big preview of the PSG game tomorrow night. PSG lost this weekend. They I think they made 11 changes to their team. They're completely rested. We did the opposite. We tried to find some form. We ended up finding the opposite and probably lost some confidence. I do think it's, when we watched us in the Carabao Cup we got to a semi-final this year, and the team was out. The team that was out there was the team, but they weren't playing like they do in the league or in the Champions League. I think the league has now become the Carabao Cup to them, and the intensity they're playing with is purposely down, and it's costing them because other teams have got a lot more to fight for. I think inadvertently we do have a lot to fight for, so it's hard to kind of gauge it, because going to PSG will definitely bring something out of us that's different to what we saw this past weekend. We were drawing and losing in the league in and around the Madrid games. There is a definite difference. I do worry mentally if they go 1-0 down early and we're 2-0 down over the two legs, what could happen next? Because I could see us going hell for leather, getting nothing from it because we got no real attackers, and them getting another, and then it becomes a bit of a mess. And as nice as it is to get to a semi-final, you don't want to be like, I think it was Germany against Brazil, I think it was Bayern Munich against Barcelona, where you kind of end up losing 7 or 8 over two legs, and it kind of puts a dampener on the whole experience. Because it's been a great experience. If we win 1-0 and it goes to extra time and they win it 2-1, something like that, I think you can kind of go, do you know what? We were 1 goal away, and it will all come back to is in January we had the opportunity to go get Watkins, who is our favourite Villa. We chose not to, but that is the difference right now, that we could be playing a centre forward at PSG, or that would have been the guy that went for on goal instead of Martinelli and Trossard in the first leg, and we were going there with a win under our belt of 2-1 and trying to defend, which is what we do best. A lot of questions are going to be asked. Like I said, I think not until the end of the season will we be able to actually rate our season. I've talked about the different things, the positive and the negatives. I think we can all agree decision and injury-wise has been bad. And I think we all kind of knew we were out of the title race in January, especially when Havertz went and got that injury as well, and so did Jesus, and then we didn't replace them. I think we knew that was the end of that. And I think with that, we thought that was the end of probably the Champions League. And then when we got Madrid, I think the pressure was off. We expected to lose. We ended up delivering. And I think the pressure's now back. And people forget that Dembele might have a knock. There's a small chance Dembele has a knock, which is massive. But there is another way of looking at it, which is they're a fully strength. They can rest their team. There's no injuries other than Dembele. There wasn't any going into the first leg. We are missing, in that first leg, we were missing our main centre-back, our heartbeat of our centre-back, our best midfielder in Partey this year. We were missing our 2 options up front. And even if Partey couldn't play, his understudy and Jorginho was injured. He got injured 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago when he broke his ribs. And now we're looking at potentially Timber being unavailable, Ben White unfit and not able to finish. He did finish, but he looked uncomfortable to finish the game at the weekend. So we could be in a position here where we don't have either right back. We don't have the other right back who hasn't been available all year. We might not have a Calafiori as our left back. We don't have our main centre back. We don't have our centre forward who's understudy. If we remember that, and our main attacking threat off the bench is going to be a 17-year-old or Raheem Sterling, it makes you really kind of put it in perspective and go, how are we even in a semi-final? So I think if we can get ahead around that when we go out, I think you can kind of go, well, yeah, that's kind of a given that we've gone out there. But we have also built it up in our heads because of the Madrid performance that maybe we could win the Champions League. But to win the Premier League, like we said before, you need less injuries than other teams. You need better decisions than other teams. You also need to be very good and in flow. to win the Champions League is no different. You need a run of form. And again, we've shown that so far. I think smashing PSV, and they haven't really lost away from home, and it's the most goals away from home in Champions League knockouts. Then to beat Real Madrid and knock them out. That is the kind of form you need in that kind of group. But again, when you remind yourself you're missing all these things you need to get that over the line, it's a very unlikely we can overturn this. They're very good PSG. Unless Arteta has spotted something that is completely going to break them open, the only thing I'd say is they will have, minimum of 3 or 4 chances in the game that we have to not concede. And with that, you need that slice of luck. And when we do get forward, like we did in the first game, we had 3 good chances. We have to be potent. We have to deliver in front of goal, which we haven't done all season. The only benefit is they are actually very poor at set pieces. I know it looks like we are, as I explained earlier, but every time we get a set piece, a free kick, a corner, it is a genuine chance at goal. And we have to remember that. So if we get 10 corners and free kicks throughout the game, like collectively, that is 10 opportunities to score. All you need is 1 or 2 of them if you defend well, and you can be in a Champions League final. So it is so on a knife edge that we have to do it. That I genuinely think there's a chance that there'll be less pressure on them being away from home. I think that last game with the Tifu and the build-up and everything like that, I think it was potentially too much for them. And in that first 20 minutes, they realised they're not in it. But this is a far cry from going out to quarterfinals every year for 10 years, like 10-2 over 2 legs. Again, there's still time, but we are in this time. And I think it's hard for even us as fans to comprehend. We're so used to going into second legs of big games where we're already out because we're 3-0 down or 4-0 down or whatever it is, and we also know we can't stop them scoring. Whereas if someone said right now that we're going to win 2-0 tomorrow, that isn't out the realm. Yeah, we could also lose 2-0. But we're in the tie. It's within 1 point. It's within 1 goal, sorry. It is 100% overturnable. And I think we have to kind of mentally get past it because I'm struggling. I'm thinking, we're out. It's 1 goal. You only need 1 goal to go to extra time and then to go to penalties. And then it's completely guesswork. I think they would be a lot better at penalties and their goalie would be a lot better at penalties. As David Raya dives weeks before they've kicked the ball. So that part of it is not beneficial, but anything can happen. It goes from us thinking we're 100% out to 50-50. And I'll take those odds right now. Obviously, an unbelievable performance and a 2-0 win and just a masterclass would be perfect as Luke the dog is chasing a fly. Buddy, you're going to knock yourself out doing that. It's a fly, buddy. So, yeah, there's a lot there. Timber being out would be horrific. And I know he struggled with Kvaratskhelia in the first half. But after 20 minutes, he didn't let him past him one more time. It's the first time he's failed to get past a defender over a 60-minute period in any game this season. So we really did start to close them up. And I know they had a really good couple chances late that looked like they could have been offside in the build-up, but there's still chances that are marginal. And in that game, they scored a good goal. They created those 2 chances. We scored an offside goal, and we created 2 very good chances. At home, under that atmosphere, it was a 3-3 game. I know when you actually look at the 2 Champions League, the semi-finals, we created the most XG and conceded the least. And we're the only team that didn't score and also the only team that didn't win. That lost the game. So that should show you that we're good enough because the stats show that we're good enough to win the game. It's just so much harder. If this was 1-0 coming back to the Emirates, you'd really feel we could do something big. The fact that it's them going to theirs, where Liverpool did win 1-0, but you saw Villa just get absolutely penned in. And Villa has so much more aggression and energy running from midfield than we do. They were able to get the goal on the counter, but then they just kind of got sucker punched into more, and they struggled to create any more. So I'm hoping, because Villa also went on to score 3 goals at home against them. I don't know what is possible as far as us scoring. Again, Moreno also might not be fit. Apparently, he was limping at the end of the game. Who is the other one? Odegaard is a fitness check, apparently, and then Jorginho is a fitness check, which we didn't expect him to be available, so that's more of a positive. But if Timber and Odegaard are out, then we're really in a bind, and it's very unfortunate. It also sums up the whole season. Evan Nilsson's coming off his arm. Everton's penalty in the last few weeks. The fact that in January we had to go push on to kind of keep the league intact, and the Champions League we didn't buy anyone, and we actually lost our two centre forwards even though we needed a centre forward. It kind of sums up our season, I think, if Odegaard and Timber are missing, or at least one of them. It's just been cursed from the get-go. Fixture list, those early decisions when they just gave up on that rule after that. Just fine margins in games, like I mentioned, literally in the last 3 Premier League games, you can pinpoint an exact moment where they got something wrong and it cost us. Champions League-wise, nothing like that, but as far as we just look lightweight, as far as other teams left, when you watch that Inter versus Barcelona game, it was terrifying. And I don't know how we're supposed to, with Moreno up front and the players missing, perform. But sometimes in Champions League, Dortmund went to the final last year. Sometimes teams just find a way in a weird way, and they make it to they make it the distance. As far as looking tired as well, as Arteta said this would happen at the start of the season. He was 3 days before. I think the season had just started. We were 3 days before the end of the transfer window, and he said we were about 5 players light. And I've brought this up before. So we're about 5 players light. We then went on to lose, players like Odegaard for 3 months. At that point in the season, we also lost Declan Rice to a broken foot. I think it was a broken toe for a period of time. There was red cards to multiple players for no apparent reason, and then there was also the Moreno broken arm when he first joined. If he was like before all that, and then consistently we've had 4 or 5 players out at any given time. Again, like I said, we've really overachieved this season, I think. But it is totally the club's fault. Take away all the other stuff that's not in our control. The stuff that is in our control is getting depth and spending that money. And people say, like, look at City, look, they're getting better. And look at Chelsea, they're growing into the season. So are Newcastle. In January, when we were already short, we lost 2 more players and replaced them with none. Man City spent £250 million on players. Of course they're going to catch up with us. It makes total sense. That's what people don't seem to take into consideration. And I think this summer is going to be massive. And we can't sell 3 or 4 players and replace them with 3 or 4 players. We need... The squad right now is... If everyone is fit, like every single person is fit, we've got about a 17-player squad that is worthy of coming onto the football field. There isn't players don't know. That needs to be 20 to 21. If we lose, like some people saying, we're going to lose Jorginho. Looks like he moved today for the end of the season. If we lose him, let's say we lose Trossard. Let's say we lose Zinchenko. Maybe they're not the worst to lose. And obviously we'll lose Sterling. That's another player. We have to then replace Jorginho with someone who's as good as Jorginho, if not better. Let's say it's Zubimendi. If you lose Trossard, we need to now go buy a left midfielder that causes Martinelli to be an understudy. Whether that's Eze or Williams or someone else, was it Byron Gittins talked about this week? Someone like that. Then we have to go buy a centre forward. And we have to retain Jesus and Havertz and Moreno as an option, whether it's Sesko. Waneri, I think, could become the understudy to Saka, and I think everyone would be very happy with that. But I think then, when you look at the team, you don't need a new left-back because Calafiori and Lewis Skelly now are covering that. Ben White, Timber are covering the other side. Kivior, Saliba, Gabriel, they're covering that. I think you have to then go buy a midfielder, an Odegaard, type, someone who could play higher up the field, like a Morgan Gibbs White styled player. And then maybe more players, just more under-level players that, whether it's Marquinhos back off loan and he plays, is Vieira comes back and he plays. You need just more players. It sounds stupid, but with the depth that we had this year, I don't know how we've even got where we are. But we're here now. We need to figure it out in the summer. But huge game, season defining, maybe the biggest game in our last 15, 20-year history. And we have to do it in Paris. I think someone said we have never lost a second leg in France or so. I don't know. There was some kind of stat like that doing the rounds. I don't think it really matters. But we need to remember that PSG are definitely beatable. And we are better than what we showed in that first leg. And as the game went on, we weren't as scared of them. For that first 20 minutes, it really felt like Arsenal of old. When we played Barcelona and Munich and all these teams, we expect to ship 10 goals. We shouldn't ship 10 goals. This is a tight game, and the margins have got to go our way, and we got to force them our way. So, huge game. And then, depending on whatever happens there, a huge game at the weekend against Liverpool as well, because a win can really put everyone's nerves at ease, and we can kind of just get through to the end of the season then. But next week on the podcast, we'll be talking about what happened in that game with PSG, whether we're about to go to our first final in 19 years in the Champions League, or we've lost to Liverpool, lost to PSG, and we're really trying to figure out how we got to get points out of these last two games to rectify anything, really. We didn't expect to be in this position, but here we are. Joe will be back next week on the podcast. Hopefully this is up nice and early today, so you've got 24 hours before, we've got over 24 hours before the game, so you can listen to it. Let us know. Go to iTunes, Spotify, 5-star review. We are on TikTok at Gunners R Us podcast. We do a video every single day. Please check it out. Check out Simon Miller 316 and check out TBA Wrestling on all forms of socials if you want to get a hold of us. And we'll be back next week. Bye-bye.